All right, I'll call our work session to order. First item on the agenda tonight will be the approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Any questions of staff or comments on the minutes?
Have none.
Okay. Next item will be, so we'll have the three items. We're going to discuss them together and vote on them separately. Is that correct?
Correct. I will speak to the zoning code amendments, and then I would ask that the applicants speak to the what they're proposing to do at the actual site and the use of it.
Okay, so you'll talk first and then we'll have the applicant.
Yeah, if that's what you'd all prefer, I think that would be the appropriate way to do it.
I think that sounds fine. And I did see we're going to have findings on agenda item number 1 and I guess on 3 as well, right?
Just 1 and then 4.
Oh, 1 and 4 will have findings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quick question to staff, I guess, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
The first one, adding convenience store into our code, is that required to move on to step 2?
The zoning code amendments are required in order to move forward with the conditional use and the amended final. Yes,
But approving 1 in no way implies approving 2. These are not a package deal. We're just adding convenience store in the first one.
Well, maybe I should
definitions.
walk through it. Maybe I should just walk through it real quick, if that's all right,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. So right now, this section, Ballas and Clayton have available to them service revitalization regulations, these flexible regulations, which they're taking advantage of. Total Access was doing the same before they withdrew. And a gasoline service station is permitted use under those service revitalization regulations. Obviously, that's not the case anymore. It's going to be a convenience store. So what staff is proposing is to amend the existing definition of convenience store to allow the sale of gasoline products and then add it as a conditional use along with gasoline service station in the campus office zoning district, which then allows it to be eligible for a conditional use permit request. That's what's being set up with these amendments. Because right now, convenience store is defined in our code, but it's silent everywhere else. We don't actually have it listed anywhere as a permitted or conditional use in town.
And I guess I'm trying to differ, and sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I'm butting in, but it's like I'm just trying to differentiate convenience store. I mean, I go into the filling station on the corner and they have food and drinks and things I can buy that I would traditionally think of as a convenience store. So are they not actually doing a convenience store there now? Or is there something different that we're talking about?
You're talking about Woods Mill and in Clayton?
I'm talking about the filling station on the corner there where you go into Ballas and Clayton.
No, the primary use is a service station with gasoline.
I get that, but you can go inside and buy stuff. I mean, you can buy cookies and candy and drinks, and
they have an extremely limited assortment, but the primary function and the way we define that specific use today is a service station.
Okay.
And once that service station goes away, we need to create a use for it, which in this case would be a convenience store.
Mr. White?
Yes, you mentioned the Phillips. That's closer to a convenience store, isn't it?
It is.
But yet, when it lost its service department, very much closer to a convenience store. Why wasn't that why didn't that have to go through the process?
I can't tell you exactly what happened with that when it was converted. That was before my tenure here. If it were to come forward today, I would say that we would need to amend the code to create a convenience store use for it. I don't know if it needed a restaurant approval for the 3 Baby barbecue. I don't know how that all played out, but I certainly would make them go through a conditional use process.
Okay.
Today, that was happening. So these are the amendments to the code that we need to do to allow this type of use to take advantage of service revitalization at this specific location, since it will no longer be a service station.
Well, and I think the point I would make on this, and Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to keep butting in, but I think the point I would make on this is convenience stores. We already have one in Town and Country that I would call a convenience store. The fact that it's not in our code probably means that this should happen regardless of this. So
Yeah.
I know we're doing this as part of this process, but I think it's important that we do this independent of this process as well, in my mind.
I would agree, yes.
Are you talking about Three Bay Barbecue?
Yeah, the Phillips 66.
Yeah.
At Woods Mill.
Yeah,
And bakery.
it's like a restaurant.
And bakery. Don't forget the bakery.
Um,
Go ahead,
Chairman.
Mansell.
Chairman, I have a question for, I saw on some of the public comments that about a Circle K, is that the brand of the service? Okay, so that's just
No.
them. Okay, that was erroneous information. I just didn't, okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Ryan, what about traffic? I don't see any.
The St. Louis County didn't require a traffic study. They didn't feel it was warranted. It's an existing gas station, which attracts pass-by traffic. It's not a destination in of itself like a service station actually would be. I think the IT manual actually has a higher traffic generation for service stations than convenience stores. They did realign the pumps to show how flow can take place throughout the site, like it was requested from Dennis, I believe, at the previous meeting. So they can support large vehicles. They've been able to show that with the turning radius movements. But I don't believe this will be, other than a destination for adjacent neighbors in along Ballas and Clayton. It's more or less going to be a place that traffic is already, it's on its way somewhere else and it pulls in and stops. It's not a destination.
I know a high school junior that's planning to make good use of it if it goes in. Mr. Millen Smith.
Thank you, Rob. Brian,
Yes, sir.
to me, the critical linchpin issue is service hours or operating hours. And in your memo, it states one thing, but you have recommended something else. Can you update us on where that matter stands?
They proposed to midnight, and what I've done, I've told them this. I said, there does not seem to be support for those kind of hours. I'm going to recommend as a condition that hours of operation be 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And I put that as a condition under the CUP. I've also listed that as a condition for deliveries so that there be no overnight deliveries between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. So that's the proposed condition right now is 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. is operating hours.
Yeah, okay. And have they responded to your recommendation?
They didn't have an issue with it. Their main point that they've been making is whatever the hours will be, they'll be consistent in terms of operating during those hours. I think that was an issue that's been ongoing is the hours have fluctuated at the existing site, and they've been very clear that they want to be open when they say they're going to be open. They didn't have any specific issues with it, but you certainly could raise that question with them.
All right. Just from my perspective, this is the linchpin issue because I consider this to be essentially a residential area. And so I would be very opposed to anything operating past 10 o'clock at night. And I liken it to that needs to be addressed. And the rest of it is somewhat like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. It doesn't make any difference.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Mansell?
Chairman Seaman, was that, you had mentioned concern with hours. Does that, what, I couldn't remember what your recommendation was. Was
Brought it
that,
up earlier. Yeah, I mean, and I think what they said last time was similar. It was, it'll be consistent, whatever is, without a commitment on the actual hours. I mean, for me, I could go a little later on Friday and Saturday night, maybe 11, but we'll get into that in the meeting.
okay.
Mr. McKnight.
And then one of the other things I wanted to kind of get the feel for the room. I'm looking at this, and one of the things that stands out to me is I don't want to draw more traffic to this intersection than we currently have there. And one of the things I have seen in certain cases, and I can't say that these guys will do it, but I would not want to see advertising along 64 drawing people to a filling station in this space. So I'm considering recommending that as a condition to restrict any advertisement. And I don't know how to word that or how to propose that, but I'm thinking it's within a certain radius or what we want to do with that. And I don't know.
We've done it before with the Tim Hortons. I believe that was a condition.
Yes, it was.
I can look that condition up if you like.
Could you, Laura?
Yeah, that'd be great if you would.
That'd be handy. Other questions of staff on items 1 through 3?
They are, and I'll just highlight, they're planning a fairly dense evergreen screen for the south neighbor, installing a curb where there is no curb now. We've had a major stormwater issue there in the past, so that will be solving an issue for one of our residents with that curb installation. It was a stormwater project, but speaking with the folks here who handled that, this curb will help solve that issue. So I know that the southern neighbor is happy about what's being proposed in terms of how it impacts their property.
All right, well, this also clean up the kind of the mess they have now on that, I guess it's the west side with
Yes.
the
There will be no
fencing
mess.
and that'll all get cleaned up with this process.
There's like a wooden shed-like structure, a fenced structure for all their barrels and all those vehicles. All that will go away. There'll be landscaping along that side. There'll be either they want to put in new residential style fencing for the neighbors because it will be on the neighbor's property. I believe that's what they're proposing. The current state will not continue. It will be very different.
Right, if I
Whitmire?
could, Ryan, the drawings show new wooden fence on the west boundary and the south boundary. And I'm
Yes.
assuming the fence that they're considering is the one that was pictured on a single sheet attachment to the back of the drawings.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Alderman Whitmire?
Apologies for being late. Don't know if it was discussed, but has anybody asked why, if anybody has any history as to why we don't have convenience stores in our code today?
We have a definition for it. And I think the definition was merely to differentiate it from grocery stores.
Mhm.
But other than that definition, that single definition, it is not listed anywhere in any district as a permitted or conditional or even prohibited use. So
And no one has any recollection as to why that might be. No prior discussion.
no.
Okay, thank you.
So we talked about how it would be good even without this to Commissioner McKnight, mentioned that it would be good to have that taken care of and address it in our code, irregardless of what's going on with this current proposal.
Anything else on items 1 through 3?
One question.
Go ahead,
Quick
Mr.
one.
McKnight.
Is the public meeting is still open, right? So we're going into this with the public meeting still open, and we'll continue that and hopefully get it wrapped up tonight.
Correct,
Okay, I just want to make sure I was right on that.
in theory.
I think, Laura, we didn't have anyone register to speak, correct?
No, we did not.
So I will need to close the public hearing then prior to the vote, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And just for the record, there will be another public hearing at the Board of Alderman level because of the nature of what's being requested. So this isn't the only one.
Yes, so there would be a public hearing for the text amendment and for the conditional use permit.
Right.
Got it.
And that would be in person, I think, at that point, because they're moving to in person next month.
Are they? Okay. All right, then we have agenda item number 4 this evening, which is the text amendment on portable storage units and dumpsters. Any discussion or questions of staff on that one?
We had a subcommittee meeting. I thought it went well. Got a lot of good comments in from Will, Sheila, and Jeff. And Dennis was unable to attend, but he submitted an email with his comments. So I believe I've incorporated everything we talked about in the revised language that you have under Exhibit A.
Seemed tight compared to last time. Mr. White.
I have just one observation. Willow Bend, which is in Town and Country, Willow Bend Apartments, that's a series of blocks, apartment blocks, eight per block, maybe a dozen blocks. And each one of these has a 2-yard dumpster as its sole means of garbage. Would that fall under this?
No, that's treated differently. Those are commercial dumpsters for the use of that facility. We're talking about roll-off dumpsters brought in for.
I just wasn't sure whether
Yeah.
it would be all encompassing. Thank you.
This is really narrowly focused on single-family subdivisions and the issue of folks bringing in pods or roll-up dumpsters for
Yeah.
excessive periods of time or placing them in the street in their subdivisions for periods of
Mhm.
time. So now we have the actual language that if we receive a complaint, we can enforce and require that, you know, the dumpster be moved, or if it's been there an excessive amount of time, that it be removed.
Mr. McKnight?
Sure. I think one of the things that stood out to me when we had the subcommittee meeting, that one of the questions was that I had brought up was, so how is this enforced? What do we do? And really what it comes down to is this is a tool for city staff. When someone has a problem, they'll call the city staff. The city staff will go out and point to this. And so it's the beginning of a conversation. It's not really, you know, it's a guideline that we're going to use with people, but it's not going to be like, we're going to go arrest somebody for doing this. It's just going to be a conversation the city will have with them. And it'll be in our code that we can actually start kind of getting people to behave correctly.
It's nice when I can point to something instead of just making suggestions
Right.
and kind of bluffing, if you will.
Question?
Mr. Mellon Swift.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's the last phrase in the last point, J, that says, or properties in non-residential zoning districts. So this applies only to residential
Correct.
areas. Okay. I think that's a very important distinction. Okay, thanks.
Alderman Whitmire?
So under item E number, it refers to unit and dumpster. I'm just wondering if those nouns should be plural.
Yes. Can we just do a Scrivener's error, or is that an actual amendment, Laura?
No, we'll need to.
I don't feel that it
see that.
would need to have an amendment for that.
I think treating it like that's fine.
Do we even need to say anything during the regular meeting then?
If you just want to make a note of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I assume Ryan, you're sorry, excuse me. I assume Ryan, you'll be making the presentation, so if you just mention it and
Okay,
there's no objection, and then that can carry forward.
Yep,
will do.
that's good. All right. Other business, we'll have the 2022 meeting schedule.
Yeah, that's just for your info. And, it's always subject to change. If you feel that there's a date that's not working out, we've been very flexible in the past, but just want to get that out to you now so you can put it in your calendars.
We did, have we run this through the various holidays? I know last year we had, this year we had to move one meeting, so
Yeah, it's okay.
I did look.
thank you, Dr. Romo. Mr. McKnight?
Mr. Chairman, before we close down, I did have one other question, and I guess this is a question for staff, but also other people that are on the commission. If you have it, one of the letters that was sent in asked about devaluation of property because of a filling store, a convenience store going in nearby. Does anybody have any? Is there any evidence that putting a convenience store a half a mile from someone's house devalues their property? I mean, I don't. I'm trying to understand how that would be a case. But
Yeah.
do we have any evidence of that anywhere?
I mean, an appraiser is going to go out, they're going to evaluate the property based on the size of the house, the number of bedrooms, the age of the house, materials. It was a service station. It's not like it's a new convenience store. That's something that gets thrown around all the time, the valuation card, and I don't believe it holds any water.
I just think that's going to be one of the conditions, and I want to make sure we're not, one of our findings will. We need to
correct.
address.
It is
Be able to have that discussion in the meeting about it.
Yep.
Sure.
yeah, I don't know how you can argue when they're putting over $1 million into a facility and landscaping and, the new signage, the new canopy, all of that. That's a detriment.
Not going to have all the cars waiting for repair, laying all over the place.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's-
Oil drums in the back, all that.
Right,
kind of
yeah.
stuff.
Okay.
Other business, I know Alderman Whitmer, I think you had another item for other business this evening.
Yeah, I thought I'd bring up, in reflecting on our decision regarding Greystone subdivision, or Greystone Manor rather, I thought we'd just briefly talk about at least one thing, and that's whether the amount of tree replacement that we're asking for is sufficient. But we can talk about that during the meeting. If questions here, I can certainly answer them.
Just to kind of get people thinking about it. I think the other item there is Mr. Spencer sort of pushed back on the arborist report, and some of the trees got upgraded after that pushback from disease to fair. And for me, that just sort of calls into question the process a little bit. It's like, it is subjective, and I'd like to be able to trust that report. And is there anything we need to be doing it makes me think of when we have to do our own traffic study on the traffic study, but
Well,
There's some-
one, and if I may,
yeah, please.
one option would be to require the developer to just reimburse the city for us to retain someone to have the study conducted. Just be another option. It would be more work for the city to have to administer that.
Same cost for the developer, but if they're working for us, tell us which of these trees are good, as opposed to tell me which of these trees could be
Right.
replaced under the,
Yeah.
I think it's easy enough with subdivisions because they're few and far between.
Yeah.
We might do 1 or 2 a year, if that. So that's something that's very manageable.
So if we did want to take some action on that, Ryan, we would have to, I guess we would.
If you give me some direction, I can put some language together.
Okay.
It would be an amendment to the natural resource section.
Okay, great. We'll bring that up in the meeting. Will we have a report from the Board of Aldermen tonight?
I knew there was something I was forgetting. Okay.
You've got 4 minutes to pull it together. All right, in that case, we'll adjourn so Alderman Whitmire can get his notes.
I've got it done. It's already done. Yeah,
All right.
I got
On
it.
the other side.
All right, we'll see you. We'll see you back here in 4 minutes.